Hi, everybody. It's Morning Headlines with Ron. And we have another day here of wild news stories that we're going to try to give some context and commentary to. Here we have a lot more. This is something that has this war between Israel and Hamas has knocked the previous war between Russia and Ukraine completely off the front pages of all the news sites. I assume that war is still going on strong. We occasionally hear about it, but this one apparently is more gripping for clicks. This is quite an interesting observation. U.S. and Israel split over Gaza goals, muddying wars. Endgame. You see Biden is working up for his re-election next year. Already there is the leftists in the U.S. Congress who are splitting with the president, saying Israel is all wrong, they're the occupier, and they are saying they may not support Biden in his race for presidency next year. There are lots of rumors about Secretary of State, U.S. Secretary of State Blinken going over there to Israel, trying to get a ceasefire, to slow down this Israel's retaliation into Gaza. Excuse me. And you can imagine that, Israel's feeling on this, that is, they were attacked and there's hundreds of hostages being held there. And it seems to be at the behest of a foreign government, Iran, who is colluding with Hamas. So Israel feels like they have the right to defend themselves in this situation. We have other things. Strike on Gaza ambulance convoy sparks condemnation. This is something we saw all through the Iraq and Afghanistan's war when the U.S. went in there, and when you've got a lot of media on the ground like you do in the Middle East. This is different like Ukraine and Russia. There was not like a big existing attention from U.S. and Western sources of journalism in that region of the world, Ukraine. But here in the Middle East, there's a huge presence and a huge interest because of both Jewish and Christian groups in the U.S. that feel common cause with Israel. So all of these things that happen, accidental bombings, targeting of groups of people that turn out to be a mistake, or a children's Christmas party, or something like that, as we saw in Afghanistan or Iraq. These things are heightened, and they're gone over with a fine-tooth comb, and there's a lot more information about them because of all the existing news media that's on the ground there already. This was a thing that was in yesterday. I mean, it hardly bears the dignity of clicking on it. Why do you young Americans support terror? TikTok. That's the platform of stupidity. I don't know what, I liked Instagram. I liked some of these other things. See sexy pictures of style, people dressed cool, showing off their lifestyle, just like I'm doing here. But TikTok is all kinds of weird garbage and sloganeering and posturing and people who seem to want to find a common cause for their weirdness, and apparently this is you have people. It causes people to maybe want to espouse exotic, strange causes like Hamas. It's one thing to be for the plight of the Palestinian people, and many Americans are, many Jewish people in America are, but you've got to separate Hamas, the terrorist group that took over in a coup and is doing these terrorist actions in Israel, from the Palestinian people. Erdogan cuts ties with Netanyahu. He pulled back an envoy. Now, in the past week, there's been a couple incidents where, kind of unofficially, to a group of people where he was spouting that Turkey will support the Palestinians and may go to war, this sort of a thing. It wasn't really an official statement. And even this sort of thing, whether it portends a real break in relations or whether it's just posturing for local consumption. We saw this a lot with Saddam Hussein when he was running Iraq. A lot of what he said was for the local people in his support group, his generals, the factions that controlled the economy there. And that wasn't even a democracy. In a democracy, that situation's heightened. So Erdogan is a sort of populist leader, and he's someone who is, I think you would say, revived Turkey's status, even though in the West we wouldn't think that, because we say, well, Turkey was a dependable part of NATO. They were a dependable part of Western liberal democracies standing up against authoritarian governments around the world. And, you never heard of Turkey taking an independent stance until about, 10 to 15 years ago. And now Turkey has reemerged on the world stage, charting their own path and making their own decisions. And I believe before this Hamas incursion into Israel, Turkey was very much mending its relationship with Israel in the same way Saudi Arabia was. And of course, this is something Iran does not want to see. And this is what is behind the theory that Iran was very happy to help and back Hamas take action at this time to scuttle the good relations that were developing. American splinters over war. This is about the left-wingers in Congress, some of these kind of hardcore Congress people who are splitting with Biden, who Biden has taken this sort of very traditionalist role of supporting Israel in this. House member accuses Biden of supporting Palestinian genocide. That's more kind of stuff. Youngkin, more I don't know, regional election shenanigans in the United States. It gets depressing. It's something how DeSantis lost Florida to Trump. DeSantis almost seemed for a time like he was going to be the next Reagan. Maybe he was going to do all the things that the right wing wanted, but without the baggage and the chaos that Trump brings with him. But apparently he was not able to get the support of local political leaders and opinion makers in Florida, and he crashed and burned and took some very strange, extreme stances on stuff they taught in school. I don't know. You never know how these things can go wrong for people. You take one wrong turn. Here we have a few more things about Trump. You have this crazy Boebert lady, more representatives who are acting crazy in the U.S. Congress. Billionaires buying land for their utopian city. Everybody dreams of making a utopian city from scratch, but that's not how cities created or work or grow. Cities are living things that grow up over time. Can't build them from scratch. We mentioned that this was the guy, the crypto scam guy, and the social media news collapse. We talked about that yesterday. These platforms, Facebook and whatever, they just don't want to be involved in news anymore, because you can't just put a news item there on your feed. You've got to vet it and tell people that it's right or wrong. You've got to take a stand. There's no such thing as just putting out a news item and assuming that it's fair and balanced, or it tries to be fair and balanced, because the assumption now is that all of these journalists are almost scammers. They're connected to one side or another, and they want to They want to push one agenda or another, and thus, if you put one of those headlines on your site, everyone will say, you've got to put a notice there that that's misinformation. Now you've got to make a judgment that those people are making a judgment. I really think we need to get back to news that is actually impartial in its reporting. Migrants flocking to the USA. Oh, finally, here we have a mention of another big war that's happening in the world. Ukrainians reel from war chief stalemate warning. This has come up. If you look for it in the news, you could find it in the past few years. This is the idea. I see someone walking past me in the background, looking. What is this guy doing? That what's happening in the Ukraine is the Ukrainians are finding that their donor nations are tiring. They're tiring of the expense to support Ukraine, and they're tiring from the schisms this is causing in alliances and groups such as NATO that should be supporting peace in Europe, even far Eastern Europe, in the Ukraine. So it's getting to the last moments of the winter offensive in that theater of war there in Ukraine, and neither side. Well, I think Ukraine is saying Russia's making advances, but maybe they're just saying that to try to excite the West that they should support them more. But it looks like there's maybe for the rest of the season there's a sort of stalemate in the region, and I'm sure from Western viewpoint that stalemate is seen as a good thing for us because it's bleeding Russia. Of course, it's also bleeding Ukraine, but Ukraine isn't seen as a danger to the world order. You see, because what Russia's doing is, the pre-World War thing where if a nation just sees another nation, they just would like to take it over, and they go in and they do it. So since that time, since the end of World War II, part of the world order has been to try to prevent that, and that parts of countries aren't allowed to secede from another country or, invite a neighboring country to come in to invade them because they want to secede. Now, I know there's many examples of this, people trying to do this or having it happen, but this is the sort of the world order that has largely reigned since the end of World War II. Excuse me. Alabama mayor kills self after blog outs his cross-dressing. I don't know. I'm sorry. I have to take a look at this to see how he looks. That site's slow to come in. Daily Mail always is. This is a kind of a rabble-rousing site that'll say anything to get the clicks, and they often get my clicks. I just want to see it. Poor fella. It seems odd that in this day and age, whether you're okay, I'm going to have to see. Oh, there he is. That doesn't look too bad. Oh, there he is with Trump. It's too bad in this day and age when there's so much acceptance of such things that he killed himself. But I don't know. Warren Buffett, I saw this and I wanted to mention this. I mean, if you don't know about Warren Buffett, the lore, the background, the story of him, he's a fascinating person. And if you're interested in business, I used to teach a thing where you have the different levels of business, and these are the things they never teach in school, but they should. You have employee, you have kind of the boss at work, you have the C-level people, the CEO, CFO, all those things with C in front of them. You have board member, or you have entrepreneur, then you have a board member. You have these people that sit at the head of the board. And when you get up into the entrepreneur, the C-level, being on a board member, which is sort of like being an investor because you have a stake in the company, these are things they never teach you about. In school, we're taught Here's my resume, sir. I'm going to sell you my butt to sit in your chair 8 hours a day forever, which is fine for some people, but a lot of people want to move up to those different levels of ownership and control of companies. So Warren Buffett, he represents this sort of high-level chairman of the board person, and what they do is they go around and they attend board meetings. That's their job. Now, they don't have to know anything about the details of even what the company's selling or the market or whatever. They appoint a CEO to do that. So how does the people who are chairing these boards, how do they understand what's going on in the company and what the future is? How do they do their management job? And they do it by reading balance sheets. And there's actually a great book by Warren Buffett's former daughter-in-law, who has written kind of as a scholar of Warren Buffett and has written a series of books about his business methods. And there's a book she has called that she wrote with him or with his input, I believe, called something like Reading Balance Sheets, or Warren Buffett's Reading Balance Sheets. It's a short book. It's definitely worth a read, but it explains, if you don't even know what a balance sheet is, this is what a company creates to show its cash flow, its reserves going forward, the assets in a company. And by looking at different parts of these figures that are all set in a standard way, one can see if a company will have enough cash flow going forward, what its prospects are, this sort of a thing. And I always thought they should teach this in school. Well, how come I never learned about this? How come you got to go out in the world and learn about this? So this is a fascinating subject. I see some dogs frolicking in a naughty way in the background, so it's just nature, folks. It's just nature. So get that book on Reading a Balance Sheet if you're interested in business, or read something about Warren Buffett's life or his kind of theories of investment. He doesn't invest in stocks on dips, ups and downs of the stock market like most people do. People run out when the stocks are falling to sell their stocks when they're low, and then when stocks are going up, they rush to buy when they're going up. It's kind of the opposite of what you're supposed to do, but he doesn't do any of that. He buys on the company's fundamentals, and he invests in companies outside of market forces. All fascinating stuff. It's definitely a person, if you're interested in thinking and educating yourself on another area of business, get into Warren Buffett lore. Taylor Swift fans camp out for 5 months before concert. That is definitely a person who I say, what's the appeal? I know a few of her songs, and I've heard other ones I've forgotten instantly, but by the same token, by the fact that so many people are obsessed with her, that also makes me sort of obsessed with her. Like, what is the appeal? What does this say about our society? All of the young women of, I guess, mainly America that see something in her, perhaps a traditional but empowered femininity. Certainly she has some common cause with the common girl out there, but that's just amazing phenomenon. New enemies of Argentina's far right, the Swifties and BTS army. Wow, the Swifties are everywhere, and BTS is as well. This is the emergence, really, of global pop. I always thought that some girl groups from Korea would be big and not a boy group, but how interesting that never happened. It was the boy groups that got big globally. More attacking Russell Brand. These accusations against him seem to be very coordinated by the media. I wonder what he did that set everybody on him right away, as if people didn't know he was a wild man before this. I don't know. I don't really care that much either. It's just an aside. U.S. plans to bring grizzly bears back to North Cascades. This is, I don't know why. This is one of my fetishes. I love stuff about when they're rewilding areas or bringing back the top level predators into a former ecosystem in one of the areas where I grew up in. They're seeing the kind of spontaneous reintroduction of mountain lions coming back into the area. This is something that man isn't doing, the mountain lions are doing themselves. And I think it's fascinating. And, with all of this, why is it important to bring these animals back? Well, when you remove the top level predators, their prey, say for instance I don't know about the grizzlies, but for the mountain lions, say it's deer. And so when you remove those mountain lions, like 100 years ago, you have the deer that proliferate, the white-tailed deer. And there's herds of them, and there's nothing that takes them out. And eventually disease starts to take them out. They get sickly, they stand in one place all day, and they denude whole areas of forests. When you bring back the predators, the deer's behavior changes, and they, instead of standing one place all day and eating, they move every 15 minutes. So that means their actions of eating sort of regulates the whole forest, but does not destroy any one part of the forest. And this is a fascinating thing, how all of these animals in their proper activity, it's not just innate, it has to do with their interactions with other animals as well. So I just always am very fascinated when people are talking about bringing back these top-level predators and restoring ecosystems to the way they're supposed to be in the first place. Before we go, I'll mention my book. This is my novel of Bangkok. There Are Still Unknown Places. It's the story of young men and young women living and working in a modern Asian city, a city that is both very ancient and mystical and very modern and futuristic and concrete, and their lives and their inner struggles and their desires, all of our desires to go away to some of the most remote places on earth. So until next time, tomorrow we'll have some more headlines, some more context and commentary, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.